Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest. Today we have from Westboro, we have a new author, and his name is Lawrence D. Maloney. He is the author of Unto the Altar of God. And does he have a story behind this? Welcome, Larry. How are you doing?
Thank you, Jan.
It's Memories of a Young Seminarian. First of all, Larry, what made you interested at that age, at 13, to try out the seminary?
Well, it was partly my background. I grew up in a Catholic home, went to a Catholic school. My mother was a widow and was in charge of the school cafeteria, the Catholic school cafeteria, and oftentimes she would also go to the rectory and cook for the priests. So I got to know priests, and in a way, they started to become a role model for me.
Yeah.
My father was deceased. In the same way that other kids might be attracted to being a baseball player or a policeman or a jet pilot, a priest became my role model. I was an altar boy, I was a choir boy, and so there was that kind of encouragement. And obviously I was around nuns as well,
yeah.
And there was encouragement there. And it was also somewhat of an adventure. Rather than going to the local high school, you were going away, you were going into the unknown. So that was an attraction as well. But in terms of writing the book, it was such an unusual thing to do.
Yeah.
Not so much in those days. In those days, there were over 130 high school seminaries, boarding schools.
In Massachusetts?
Around the country,
okay.
Totally around the country, with over 20,000 students. Today, only 2 of those remain. So I'm talking in the book about an environment that's virtually disappeared.
Yeah.
So that was really the angle I was looking for in terms of why would a young person want to be a priest or make that decision at such a young age?
Right.
What was it like in the seminary? And then gradually, as the protagonist in the book got older, the attraction began to decline. So it's really not a book about religion. It's a book about growing up.
Your adventure, your whole journey.
Right, and so that the title is somewhat deceiving. When people see Unto the Altar of God, they begin to think that this is going to be a heavy-duty book on religion, and it's not.
No.
Religion's a part of it,
Right.
but it's about growing up and finding yourself.
Lawrence, Larry has on the back of it, there's an excellent picture of him too. But he's also a veteran journalist, and his work has included hundreds of articles written or edited for a variety of consumer and business publications. He is a former deputy editor of U.S. News and World Report and a past editorial director and publisher of Design News, which is a technology website. Design News is that's a newspaper, right?
No, it's a magazine.
It is. It's a magazine. And also, you were at a technology website and magazine. That's what we're talking about. And during the Vietnam War, he covered military operations as an Army journalist. Oh my gosh, you've had a heck of a journey.
Right, it was a great career. People say about journalism, it's a good thing to be if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, because you're constantly learning new things, meeting new people, and getting kind of a bird's eye view of what it would be like to be a doctor or a scientist or an engineer without having to spend your whole life in that profession. So it's fun.
So you were 13 when you went to the seminary. Was it in Massachusetts?
No, the book is set in western Pennsylvania. I'm from a little town north of Pittsburgh, right along the Allegheny River.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that atmosphere in the book, because I had a very happy childhood, despite the fact that my father died when I was a year and a half old. I had older brothers and older sister.
Yeah.
It was a great place to grow up.
Were you the baby of the family?
I was the baby of the family.
Youngest.
So there was always, when you read the book, there's always this yin and yang between the seminary and where I grew up. You know, the world, as we often refer to it in the seminary.
Right. Yeah.
So when you went on vacation, you forgot all about the seminary. You were back in your home environment again. So
you were 13.
13.
At what age did you make that decision, or right after you left middle school?
Yeah, right around the 7th or 8th grade is when I had to begin to make the applications. As I said, that was a common thing to do back then.
Yeah.
Nowadays, most people who enter the clergy do so usually after college, and many people after they've tried another profession. So it's an entirely different situation today.
This is set in 1958 to 1966 period and describes a teenage boy's struggles to persevere in a rigorous Catholic seminary amid nagging personal doubts, the turmoil of the 60s, and revolutionary changes in the Catholic Church triggered by the Second Vatican Council. That's a lot.
Well, you know, the church that I knew when I entered the seminary was changing. The Second Vatican Council, among other things, made the Catholic service in English. It used to be in Latin.
Yeah.
It opened up a lot of opportunities for lay people to participate more in Mass and in the church. So things were changing. That was another thing that was an influence on me as far as deciding to finally leave.
Did anybody tell you what you were going to be getting into before you left? Because that he describes it as the boys in the seminary, which this one room filled with a lot of beds.
Well, there was a lot of discipline. There were bells. You were up at 5:30 in the morning, going to class, going to Mass every day, study halls. So there was a lot of discipline to it. When I left the seminary and I went to Notre Dame for undergraduate, then I went to have a journalism degree from Northwestern, another master's degree from Georgetown. To be honest, none of those schools were as tough as the seminary I attended.
I was telling Larry, it sounded like the military. I don't know if I could sleep in a room full of how many beds were there?
Well, our class was the largest class that we ever had because we were the baby boom.
Yeah.
We had 112 students who entered the seminary, but only less than a dozen actually made it the whole way to the priesthood.
Yeah.
Because if you count the 4 years of high school, then there's the 4 years of college, and then you have 4 years of theology.
Yeah.
So it's a long journey, and it's tough to hang in there for all those years.
So seminary school back then was like 4 years of high school.
Well, the whole seminary experience was 12 years. High school, college, and then 4 additional years of theology studies.
What did you study during those high school those years? Was it all seminary? Was it regular things like English and...
Right.
Yeah.
You would have your regular curriculum. We had Latin every year.
Can you speak Latin?
Well, I can. A lot of years have passed since then.
Yeah.
But we had 4 years of Latin. We had 2 years of Greek. We had 2 years of German, and then the usual math and science and physics and chemistry and all those normal subjects that you would have in a regular high school.
We're talking with Lawrence D. Maloney, and he is the author of Unto the Altar of God, and it is the story, the memoirs of a young seminarian. Take a break. Lawrence, how can they get a hold of you? Get your book.
Oh, for my book, you can certainly send me an email if you have any questions. My email is larrymaloney@verizon.net. I'm on Facebook as Larry Maloney on Facebook. And the book is available on Amazon, both in Kindle and in paperback form.
And also, you brought a copy. You're going to be bringing that downstairs to the Upton Library,
Right.
The dedicated local authors. And before we forget, you told me about an event coming up this weekend.
Right. In Ashland this Sunday, at Sunday the 19th from 2 until 5. There's a Meet the Authors event that's sponsored by the Ashland, Framingham, and Hopkinton libraries. And there will be about a dozen local authors there who have their books for sale and will also be giving short presentations about their book.
Is this the first time you have given a presentation?
I've had a radio show. I was on a local Boston radio station 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I've had some good press coverage. Nancy Olson from Metro West Daily News did a terrific story a few weeks back, which also appeared in the Worcester Telegram.
There are a lot of great local newspapers from 50 plus, that one.
Right.
My gosh. There's one that he's been on the show so many times, and he has his own online newspaper. He's right over there in Whitensville. Rod Lee. I'm going to connect you to, because it's wonderful, because it's online, and you'd be perfect. That's one of the places you could be.
Incidentally, I was talking about how difficult it is to persevere over those years, and how really 10% of our class actually persevered for 10 years. 2 years ahead of me at the seminary was Cardinal O'Malley. And so he went to the same seminary, and obviously he made it big in the church, and he's a guy that I highly respect him.
He was only 2 years older than you then.
He's only 2 years older than me.
How long did you stay? Tell the viewers how long you stayed there.
I was there for 4 years of high school and a year and a half of college. So we started with 112. By the time I left, there were only about 30 left from the 112. And then from there, as the years went on, more students left.
What made you decide, this isn't for me?
Well, it was a lot of things. It was really, the discipline and the rules began to wear on me, and I kind of had the feeling that they were trying to make us all the same.
Yeah.
Because we had adhered to what the vision was of the ideal priest. So there's that. I discovered girls, which was a big
There
factor,
you go.
including a girl who was in a convent school.
Yeah.
And if you read the book, increasingly there's an increasing attraction to her.
Yeah.
And she went on to enter the novitiate for a religious order. Eventually she left a few years after I did. But that was a factor. And the changes in the church, I didn't quite understand where it was all headed. I guess I just really found out who I really was.
Yeah.
And,
did you stay in touch with her?
well, unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago. Well, actually, several years ago. She was still in her 40s when she was killed in an accident. So, which was quite a shock to me.
So when you left, did you have any idea, now what do I do?
Well, I always liked to write. So I was kind of headed in that direction, and I was encouraged by my professors at the seminary to develop that skill. So that was in the back of my mind that I wanted to be a journalist.
Where did you apply first?
Well, I went to Notre Dame.
Yeah?
I applied there and was accepted, and then when I finished at Notre Dame, I went to Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern for my master's.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Army drafted me, so...
Yes, but you were a journalist there.
Yeah, I was. So halfway through my master's program, I was drafted. The Vietnam War was going on, so I spent a year in Vietnam and wrote about the war.
My God, that's so, already for such a young person, you have a lot on your plate. From losing your father, to going to seminary school, finding out that you weren't comfortable there, going into journalism, then being called to Vietnam. That is a lot.
A lot has happened.
It's
been a pretty full life.
How did you keep yourself from being too anxiety, too much, did you just kind of go right through it?
Well, to me, the seminary toughened me up. It really did. It to instill discipline in me. So later on in life, when tough things came, I was able to meet the challenge, thank goodness.
That's wonderful. That is so good. I'm looking at his contents here, and he did a great job. Chapter 1, right through, and he tells you exactly what each chapter is about. From the reunion in Chapter 1, Day 1, Other Fathers, Moral Mentors. Who was your favorite moral mentor?
Well, I would say probably two people were the biggest influence on me. One was the pastor who kind of rebuilt the whole parish where I grew up. And the second was a nun who was the choir teacher, who I had a lot of exposure to, and she was always giving us little moral lessons in between a class on English or history. She'd talk about character and the challenges you're going to face, and remember your upbringing and your principles. So those were probably the two. And of course, my mother. My mother was a tremendous influence on me.
And you had a brother who went for a little while.
Right. And he was 14 years older than me, and he had gone as well, but he didn't last long.
What did he go into? What did he do?
He was a small town businessman. He was a store owner. So he was an entrepreneur.
I can see where it would be quite a challenge to go through it. It's I won't say rigid, but as you said, it teaches you to be very correct or do things in a certain way. I don't know how to put it. What would you call it?
Well, again, it's discipline, and it's focus and perseverance and grit.
Was there punishment if you didn't?
Well, there was no physical punishment.
Yeah, right.
But every month they had a meeting called the conference, and they would evaluate you on conduct, application, and order. And if you didn't perform well, they would show you the door. So it really it was on you.
Yeah.
I mean, you were the one that decided to go there to be a priest. It wasn't like someone sending an unruly son to boarding school or military school.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't that. It wasn't that.
No.
You were the one that wanted to go.
Yeah.
I mean, even though you're only 13 or 14, you're the one that raised your hand and said, "I would like to be a priest." And think about that today. That doesn't happen today.
I don't think if a young man wants to go into the priesthood, what does he do now? He gets out of regular high school, then goes to a seminary college?
Well, typically now, seminaries want you to go to a regular college and major in it whenever you want to major in.
Like Notre Dame, right?
Or any school,
Yeah.
University of Massachusetts. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a religious affiliated school.
Yeah.
And then after you finish college, you've had a chance to see the world and think about what you want to do. If you want to enter the seminary, if you feel that's your calling, that's when the seminaries, want you to come and visit them.
Such a difference between, Larry, when you entered at 13, which between, after a man can go graduate from high school, go through college, and then decide.
That's the way it's done today, and
Wow.
and it makes a lot of sense, believe me.
It does, because you get a little more sense of yourself.
Right.
But you know what? Your ambition was noble, you meant well, and you wanted to try it.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. We're talking with Lawrence D. Maloney, we call him Larry, and he is the author of Unto the Altar of God, and it is the memoir of a young seminarian, which is himself, at 13 years old, back then in the 60s, right?
Right.
He entered the seminary school, and that was quite an experience. Now, I'm looking down at the different chapters. What were the minim days?
Well, minim was a term that was used as kind of seminary jargon, and it's from the Latin word minimus, which is the lowest. So a minim was the freshman high school student.
Yeah.
You were like the lowest form of life. And as typical in schools like that, there was some hazing going on. And
In seminary?
in the seminary, certain walkways you couldn't walk on, certain stairways, certain jobs that the minims had to do, like picking up trash around the seminary grounds and polishing shoes for upperclassmen. So it was just part of being the newcomer to that environment.
But it wasn't bullying, right?
I mean, there might have been a little bit of bullying here and there, but not in a serious way.
I wouldn't think that the church would allow them.
No, they would not tolerate outright bullying, but there were some bullies. There's a couple bullies talked about in that book.
Yeah. You made it through, though. I mean, you passed those bullies, though. That was the...
I didn't have trouble with bullies.
You didn't have to do a deal with the bullies. Now, when you got out, when you went into journalism, did you feel comfortable with it? Did you really, really like it right off the bat?
I did. I really did, because I liked meeting new people and asking them questions and drawing them out as you're trying to draw me out. There's a lot of satisfaction in getting people to tell you things about themselves and about their work. Yeah. And so I found that fascinating.
Definitely.
So, I had no problem with getting into the journalism.
What was your special writing department when you were a journalist?
I'm more of a generalist. When I was with U.S. News and World Report, I did business, I did science, I did religion, education. So I was like all over the map. The one thing I didn't cover was politics.
That could be tricky.
So I wasn't a White House reporter. I didn't cover Congress, but I covered a lot of things. And of course, at Design News, it was a technology beat. Our magazine went to people who design products, everything from planes to cars.
Is it still out now? Or?
Pardon me?
Is it still out? That magazine?
That it's in web form right now.
Okay.
As so many publications, as you know, have converted to an online presence.
Deputy editor of U.S. News and World Report. That's still in magazine form.
It only comes out now in special issues. Like right now, the big issue is the best colleges. Every year they come out with their report on the best colleges. They have another report on the best hospitals.
Right.
So they come out several times a year with special issues on specific topics. Otherwise, they're web only in terms of covering everyday news.
I like it when they cover best hospitals. I think they also do best doctors.
They do doctors, they do investments, cars. So it's more of a service type of publication.
So when you
website.
were there, it wasn't that way.
Right. When I was there, they had the magazine every week we came out.
Did you have a favorite part of it that you wanted to be the journalist for, or you just did everything?
Well, again, I enjoyed everything. I did the cover story on when John Paul II was shot.
Yeah.
I did the cover story. I wrote the cover story for that issue, and I wrote a cover story on life in the circus, kind of a lifestyle story. So
in the circus.
Travel with the circus for a week.
You did travel. Actually, I know you.
So,
I don't want to give it away here, but traveling with the circus. I mean, that's got to be a far cry from the seminar.
Yeah, it sure is. But that's the thing with journalism. It allows you to do so many different things.
Yeah.
At least the publications I've worked on.
Yeah. Did you do TV at all or radio?
I've not been. No, I have not been a broadcast journalist.
No.
I've been on print, of course, on the web.
Sure.
So I guess you could call that.
Lawrence, tell us again. How can they reach your book? How can they get your book?
Well, again, the easiest way to get it is to go on Amazon, and you can order the paperback version or the Kindle version. So that would be the fastest way. It's also available at Tatnick.
Yeah.
I'll be also doing a Meet the Author event on September 25th.
That's coming up, yes.
That's coming up on Saturday the 25th at Tatnick from 1 to 3. So I'll have books there available.
There is have you been in Tatnuck?
Yes.
There's
yes.
a big, huge presentation room in the back. I've given presentations there, and I favor that. But also, if an author is still new and they don't want to give a presentation yet, they're great over at Tatnuck. They'll set you right up, not far from the checkout.
Right.
Yeah, and you can have that too. I sent a lot of authors over there.
Right, that's a great bookstore.
Yes, it is. I'm so glad it has survived. Really, with the COVID. Tell us some places that you have been besides. You're going to be at Tatnuck. You're going to be in that event this Sunday, this Sunday the 19th in Ashland. What was it called again?
It's a local authors event, they call it, and there'll be a dozen authors there with their books, and also giving short presentations as well.
What time, Larry?
It's from 2 to 5 this Sunday afternoon.
At the library?
It's outdoors at a location called Design Spot. Corner Spot.
Corner Spot.
Right. And it's outside, it's right near downtown Ashland.
Yeah. If I'm on Route 135, I'm going up there, what do you do?
So it's more of a Corderville Road. If you're coming off Corderville Road, it'll take you right by Corner Spot.
Corner Spot. And
Right.
it's an actual facility.
It's an outdoor space where they have different events.
If it rains, what then?
It's going to be good weather, no problem.
It better be right.
According to the forecast, it's supposed to be beautiful on Sunday.
What other places have you been to?
That's probably it. As I mentioned, I had the radio show and the event today, and
What radio station were you on recently?
it should be recorded. It's a Christian broadcast out of Quincy.
Good. How did they hear of you?
They saw the article. They saw the newspaper article.
Yeah. Good. I think that's how I found you. Tatnuck sends me emails too.
Right.
Keeps me up on who's going to be speaking there. And I saw it, the advertisement. They're very good at that.
Well, the article appeared initially in the Metro West Daily News, which is a Gannett paper. And the Worcester Telegram picked it up because it's also a Gannett paper, as well as some of the local tab papers, like the Milford paper picked it up, and the Community Advocate.
Yes. Maybe
as
that's where I
well.
saw it. It was either through Tatnuck or the Community Advocate. We're going to have to wrap this up. But again, we've been talking with Lawrence D. Maloney, and he is the author of Unto the Altar of God. And is there another book coming up, Larry?
Well, that is
on.
to be determined.
To be determined. Okay. Do you think it would be on the same type of thing or something different?
I'm not sure. It could be short stories. It
Short
could be a
stories.
series of short stories.
That'd be good.
Things that have happened since.
Yeah.
That was really the end of the first part of my life.
Yeah.
And so it'll pick up from there.
Huh. Well, we're going to get him back on again, too, if you do. That would be terrific to have you with the next one. Now, I'm curious as to all the stories with the experiences that you've had since the book, since those years.
Right.
Wow. Oh. Thank you, Larry, for being with us.
And thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it.
We'll see you next time on Be My Guest.
Riding on a shooting star, heading out toward a dream. Tomorrow's even closer than it seems.